everyone, to the Potential Awaits podcast. My name is Sue Wedsworth, your host, coach, and professor that founded WORTHResults to help people maximize their potential and achieve what they want out of life. Today, we're going to talk about motivation. So put away all your distractions, focus on today's lesson because this podcast class is now in session. Well, I hope you enjoyed my last podcast. It was about someone who went from being restructured or let go to starting up his own business. From his story, you can see the motivation he had to change his career and ultimately change his life. But what causes us to be motivated to do things? As long as I've been studying the concept of motivation and continuing to coach and speak about it and what motivates people, I found that subject utterly perplexing. We decide to do things and not to do things every day, but what motivates some of us to do those things and others not to? I'm going to give you an example. I know at least 2 friends that cut their own hair. Now, I've cut my own bangs, but I would never voluntarily, and certainly not on a repeated basis, cut my own hair. And what makes some of us do that and not go to a stylist to get our hair cut and done professionally, and what motivates us to do that? So a few lessons ago, I spoke about self-esteem. So yes, one reason could be we have different levels of self-esteem or confidence. The other is maybe money or frugality. Some people, maybe it's not worth spending the money, and for others, it is worth spending the money. Different motivations cause different behaviors. But what about those that are not motivated at all? Not motivated really by anything? Have they lost their motivation? Let's start with what motivation really is. Motivation is the reason why humans initiate, continue, or even stop a specific behavior at a given time. So the reason for us to do something comes from our motivation. When our motivation stops, the desired behavior will automatically stop as well. So how do we motivate ourselves? Well, in my first lesson, I spoke about goals. Goals motivate us to do certain behaviors, which cause certain results. The focus and continued thought on that goal and achieving that goal provides that motivation to work towards attaining it. Now, my second lesson was on fear. Now, fear of something happening or being afraid of something that won't happen if you do or don't do something, that makes perfect sense. Well, that can motivate us too. In other words, fear. But as I mentioned in my second lesson, it isn't a very beneficial motivator. It doesn't last for a long period of time. A third way to look at motivation is by looking at our needs. Now, that's different than a goal. A goal is external. A need is internal. We need something to happen, so we need to do something in order to make that happen. We think we need a haircut, but it is my need to look better, which will cause me to get a haircut, and in this case, by a professional. My need to make sure I look better will cause me not to do it myself. However, another person's need to look acceptable while saving money will outweigh them using a professional stylist. Many organizations have struggled with motivating employees, and some gurus state you can't motivate other people. Talk to any parent with a teenager. But why then do many employees get that sudden splurge of energy and motivation after attending a conference? They attend that conference, get all motivated to go back to work and do things better, then return to work. That motivation lasts for a few weeks, and then, for most, it starts to fade. People do things because they want to do them. So employees have to want to be motivated. They come to the conferences either being open to or expecting to be motivated, or allow themselves to be motivated. Others don't want to engage, so they won't be any more motivated than before they even came to the conference. So where does that leave everyone? Well, for you, it leaves you. You have to want to be motivated. You have to want to be positively motivated to do those activities you may or may not want to do, but are necessary to do. There's a great quote about success. Successful people do the things that failures don't want to do. How? By being internally motivated. For those that are struggling to find motivation, I want to share with you my game theory motivation in the hopes that it'll help you. Game theory is basically using our motivation to win at sports or any game really, and turn that inward to everything we do. Have you ever noticed how some people become really competitive when there is a prize to be won or even just amongst a game? That competition or winning the game is what motivates them to do what they have to do to win. So in turn, those same thoughts, energies, and enthusiasms to winning a game, turn that to your own life. Your life is the ultimate game where every day that gets better is the prize to win. We win games or sports by learning what we need to do. We become the best we can be, and then we play the game better than anyone else. So think of a professional athlete. They're the best at what they do. That's why they're called professionals. What do they do every day? Well, they study and they practice. They practice their skill. They practice the rules of the game. If it's football, for example, they watch tapes on how to play, they watch their opponent play, and they practice their skills over and over again. And they practice the game over and over again. They have coaches and trainers to help them be the best that they can be. And when it's game time, they do their job. They try their hardest to win. For us, it should be the same thing. Especially in order to have the best life, you should focus on your skills, practice, and study. If you have difficulty doing that outside of a sport or any game, think of it as a game. What do you need to do? Is it a certain sales target? Then break it down as if it was a game. It has rules. You practice, you study on how to be the best, and then you go out and deliver and win. Keeping that same analogy with your own life, that will help create and sustain motivation. Now, for some of you, especially that you're thinking, but sports is they really last short term. So our lives are long term. So how can we really sustain that motivation for longer periods? Well, as I said, professional athletes, when they're not playing the sport, well, like I said, they're practicing and they're studying. They don't take excessive holidays. They exercise. They stay in shape. They move themselves to be the best of the best. And again, it's the same thing. Their goal is to win and be the best, keeps them on track. So that will work for those that are competitive and love to win. Now, what about those who aren't really into sports or are not really competitive? Well, what does it for you? We have two other things to consider. They are what we call intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. So first, for those that are intrinsically motivated, as we've been talking about, you are motivated by the act itself and how you feel when you do the behavior. So keeping with my game theory, you would be rewarded with doing the game because it's fun and you enjoy doing the activity versus winning the reward. So for you that are intrinsically oriented, see the fun in the tasks you need to do. To coin another famous quote, in every job that must be done, there's an element of fun. Find the fun and snap, the job is a game. Now, that's Mary Poppins for those that may not recognize it. See the fun in what you need to do or have to do. Every job that must be done, there's always an element of fun. The other form of motivation is extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation involves the behaviors that drive by external rewards. So within my game theory as well, it's bragging rights or just winning or becoming first in the standings. Any reward in this case can be considered either tangible, such as money or grades, or intangible, like bragging rights, praise, or even fame. So think of parents who reward their children's good grades with money. Now that's actually a double extrinsic reward. The first one could be classified as good grades, and so that should do it right there. But for those that it doesn't work, they double up and they, give money. It's the same thing with any type of employer trying to figure out what motivates employees. Now, if that's what drives you and your motivation, then certainly organizations can in fact motivate employees. But do they? We're going to talk about retention, as I said, next week. But to get back to my game theory motivation, find the fun in the game of life and be the best you can to win. For those that are still struggling, well, you know what? The choice is yours. You have to choose to be motivated by something. And as I see it, why wouldn't you? You're the only one that loses if you don't. That's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. I know there's a lot of choices out there, and I'm so happy that you've spent the time with me today. If you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a lesson. If you want to talk about your own story or a specific question you'd like to have answered next week, head over to WORTHResults.com and connect with me. I'd love to hear from you. See you next time.